Hi guys, how are you all doing today? Hi. Today is the 8th of June 2015. My name is Mina and this is the Knitting Expat Podcast. Welcome. So welcome everybody. I want to say hi to new viewers. Thank you for stopping by and giving me a go. And to all you returning viewers, thank you so much for coming back. I feel very honoured that you're taking the time to watch this episode. So I'll say really quickly where you can find me. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip, on Ravelry as Mina86. We've got the Knitting Expat podcast group on Ravelry, and also the show notes. You can find the show notes on knittingexpat.wordpress.com. All of those will be linked down below. I also have a life blog, as it were. It's almost like an online diary. I'm trying to post there a little bit more often at the moment. It's sort of catching up with myself, but I just sort of post weekly at the minimum with just life updates and things that we've been getting up to, but that's also linked down below. Just if you haven't joined the Ravelry group yet, you totally should. It's really fun. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's a lot of fun. I'll be doing a few things coming up which you'll hear more about later. But you'll actually need to be members of the group to be able to take part. So come on, join the group. There was some really good discussions recently. The episode 11 thread, there's got some really good advice and chatter about sock knitting in there. So that's really interesting, and I learned a few things from that. So definitely pop on over and take a look if you're interested. I also want to say a massive thank you to you guys. You guys are amazing. Most of you probably, if you're a returning viewer, you probably already know this. I was in Dubai last week, for 2 weeks, and I flew back on Thursday night. After I got off the plane and I was sort of just checking my phone and checking everything that you normally check when you get off the plane, I noticed that my YouTube subscriptions had gone over 1,000, and I'm just absolutely blown away. You guys are amazing. Honestly, I just was speechless when I saw that, because I was gobsmacked. It's incredible. And there's over 300 of you now on the Ravelry group as well, which is also amazing. So if you've subscribed to YouTube but you're not on the Ravelry group, please come along and join there as well, because I'm planning on doing just a small little giveaway as like a thank you later on, but you will have to be a member of the Ravelry group, because I can't draw from the YouTube subscriber list. So I'll explain more about why I can't do that later. But anyway, that's later in the episode. I have a few thank yous to start off with. Want to say thank you to Z from Noodle Knits, who mentioned me from the Noodle Knits podcast, who mentioned me in her last episode, and that's Noodle Knits without an E, so it's NOODLKNITS. I'll link that in the show notes. She's a very new podcaster. She's only got 3 episodes, I believe, and she's very sweet, quite sort of like gentle voice, and but she's really lovely. And she's based in the US. She does quite a bit of like sock knitting, and she's quite a monogamous knitter like myself. Although I seem to be becoming less of a monogamous knitter as time goes on. But so I totally relate to that style of knitting. It is my preferred method. And also to Sarah of the Canadian Knitter Podcast. I saw her latest episode yesterday, and she mentioned me in her podcast. It was very sweet of you, Sarah. It's quite funny because she said that she really likes my accent, and I have to say I really like hers. I really like your accent, Sarah. Honestly, it's the Canadian accent has a very close, a very dear place in my heart for me. Because I lived in Canada for a year. I lived in Vancouver for a year back when I was 21. I had a year out from university between my second and third year, and I took a year out to work and gain work experience in the field I was studying, and I decided I wanted to go abroad because I never took a gap year. And for many reasons, but not because I didn't want to. So I decided I'd go to Canada. I got a job in Vancouver, for a year. It was like a 1-year internship job, and I had an amazing time. Vancouver is such a lovely place. It's so dear to me. I'd love to go back again someday, but I haven't had a chance to go back since I was there, and that was back in 2007, 2008. So yeah, so Canada's, like I said, Canada's always been very special to me. So I love watching her podcast, and I love her accent because it just reminds me of when I was there. And yeah, and yes, Sarah, you're right. Danny from Little Bobbins and I are from the same part of the UK. Well, close enough, about an hour or two. She lives probably about an hour or two away from where my parents are, from where I grew up. So I guess that explains why we sound quite similar, maybe. Yes, right. Well, that is it for the introductions and the thank yous. And thank you again to everybody. If, by the way, if you do mention me in a podcast or mention the podcast in your podcast or whatever, please do let me know. Either message me on Ravelry or tag me in your show notes or something. Let me know, because I would love to see. And I do love to check out new podcasts. I do every now and again try and like search or see where people have made other recommendations. So if you do have recommendations or you have a podcast yourself, please let me know. Leave a comment on the Ravelry group. I'll be sure to try and check it out when I have some spare time, because I do love watching podcasts. It seems to be the main thing I do these days. I don't really watch TV that much anymore unless Perry's around, and more about that later. Right, so the podcast format for this week is, I'm going to try and do this every week so you guys have an idea of what's coming. I'm going to do all knitting stuff first, and then life stuff, because. First up, I'm going to talk about pattern releases. Then I'm going to talk about the items that I finished last week but weren't blocked. I've blocked them now, so I'm going to show you those really quickly. FOs, works in progress, what I have next up on my needles, acquisitions. Didn't think I'd have any of those this week, but I do. Details of the knit along that I'll be hosting, my week in review, the giveaway that I talked about earlier, the 1,000 subscriber giveaway, and questions and answers at the end. So let's get started then. So for pattern releases, those of you who follow me on Instagram will have seen that I released my Cables for Lara hat pattern last week. So this was published on Tuesday. You can see that. It's a fun cabled hat pattern. I've seen already a couple of you have already finished them. They're really quick and easy. Oh, get that on there. It's a really lovely fit. Fluff. And yeah, so that's on Ravelry. And if you do make it, please tag me or hashtag your pictures on Instagram with Cables for Lara, and tag me in the pictures because I'd love to see. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out already, please do. Then the next pattern that I have coming up for release, and this will be published tomorrow, is my Sunrays shawl. Got two versions of them here to show you. This is the main one. This one is done in yarn by Mel of the Yarn Tree UK, and this is in the exclusive Fiery Sunset colorway that she dyed specifically for this design. Now, I'll be going over this again when I talk about the knit along details later in the episode, but sign-ups are still available for pre-order for this yarn, and there's a link for that in the Ravelry group. There's a thread called Sunrays KAL yarn pre-order or something like that. So if you are interested, there's a link in that thread where you can pre-order the yarn, and Mel will still be able to get it out to you for the knit along. And this is the other version that I've done up in Malabrigo sock. It's just lovely. I love this yarn once it's been blocked. It's so lovely, Malabrigo sock. So that's the designs I have coming up, or that have been released and are coming up. Then on to blocked items. So the first one you can see I'm wearing around my neck, which is my Filtering Daylight shawl, which I showed you guys last week, but you can see what a difference it makes when it's been blocked. You can see that better there. The lace portion It's so beautiful. And actually, you know what I really liked about this pattern was the way she did the bubbles. There are bubbles, I don't know if that's poked through the right way. There are bubbles in this shawl, but usually I'm not a fan of how designers or how bubbles are created in general. They're just fiddly and annoying. And I won't tell you how she does it because it is a paid for pattern, but I loved it. I think from now on I will always do my bubbles that way, even if the pattern calls for it to be done a different way, just because it is so much easier, less stressful, less annoying. Yeah, and in general, I really like the shawl. I think it's not, I don't think, it didn't block out quite as big as I thought it would, but that might just be to do with the yarn rather than the pattern necessarily, because I did get gauge. But it's a good size. It's a good sort of like neckerchief, sort of largest shawlette size. It's sport weight, so it's really warm. I have to take it off now because it is too warm. Didn't realise how warm it was until I took it off. And it was a really fun knit. I definitely wouldn't rule out making another one of these at some point in the future. And I'm the kind of person who never knits the same thing twice. So coming from me, that says a lot, really. Also, if you guys didn't notice or didn't see, I did a post on the Knitting Expat blog about blocking. I had a lot of you ask questions about blocking recently, and I know I talked about it and went through my process in last week's episode, but I thought maybe doing a blog post. I had originally wanted to film a clip, but I was really ill over the weekend, and again I'll come to that later, but I just didn't have the energy to film it, and we were busy and didn't have the time, so I just took pictures of the process, and I did a blog post, and I show how I block all these shawls. And then this is the boat trip KAL by Chrissy of the Stitched Together podcast. So you can see that better there, the light. And this is the test knit that I did for her. And I test knit the small version. And you can see compared to last week when I showed it to you, this is totally blocked out beautifully. And I really like how this sits on the shoulders. Again, this is in Malabrigo sock, and this is in the Velvet Grapes colourway. I love the variegation in that. The laces come out lovely at the bottom there. It makes such a difference after blocking lace. Really does. Oh, and I forgot to mention my Filtering Daylight shawl. This was in Quince & Company, Chickadee, which is their sport weight. And the purple is Frank's Plum, and the edging is in Frost. Those are the colourways. And the last one that I showed you last week, that I have to show you now, is my film strip shawl. And oh my god, this has just gotten massive. I was not expecting this. This just grew. I can't even show it to you properly. It's just ridiculous how big this has gone. There it is. It's massive. It's way bigger than my wingspan. It's huge. It's warm. It's snuggly. It's just perfect. You know, it's just. Anyway, so I'm hoping there will be that my mother-in-law will love this. It was a very quick knit. I think I didn't realise quite how much it was going to block out because, as it turned out, I thought I was carrying my floats because you carry the yarn, and in general I thought my top edge was quite loose. Like I kept it really loose while I was knitting because I didn't want it to be too tight. But since soaking it, you can see there, see that's all bits. I can't get this straight because it's not loose enough now because the yarn grew so much, which is fine. I've sort of blocked it at a slight curve, which makes it easier to go around your neck anyway. But it was just, I was amazed by how much this grew. Again, this is sport weight yarn. It's superwash, so I knew it was going to grow because it was superwash, but I didn't expect it to grow quite so dramatically. It's Cascade 220 Sport Superwash in blue and beige colours. They have colourway numbers, but I can't remember what they are. But they will be, it's blue and beige. really. That's all you need to know. That's it for the stuff that I'd finished last week and showed you last week, but hadn't blocked yet. Now moving on to finished objects. So the first finished object I have to show you are a pair of socks. These are the Hermione's Everyday Socks without the pattern. And look how awesome is that flashing on the leg. That's just, I love that. It's almost the same on, I mean, it's almost identical, the opposite on both socks. It completely changed on the foot. This flashing is not anywhere near as bad. But I wanted to try the heel on the Hermione socks. I'm not the biggest fan of these. I don't know. I like the eye partridge heel aspect, but I'm not sure on the garter stitch bit there. I don't know, maybe it's because I did it in a contrast colour. I was having a bit of difficulty with it, but I did like the contrast colour. It's the first time I've done a contrast heel and toe. The yarn I used was Fortissima colour, and the contrast colour is Lime Brown Sockies in the Circus Peanut colourway. And these were knit on 2.25s. I cast on 72 stitches because I need a bit more space around the ankles. But what I've realised now is 72 stitches is fine around the ankle, but it is a little tiny bit loose in the leg. So in the next one I might try 68. It's all a bit trial and error, to be honest. And obviously 72 was fine at the top around the cuff, but along the middle bit here. So it might just be, I have to adjust a little bit throughout. Then after the gusset decreases, I think I explained this on when I did the Rose City rollers. After the gusset decreases here, I knit about 1 inch, and then I started doing more increases, and I increased down to 64 stitches. So I increased 2 stitches every 4th row. So I would decrease 2 on the instep, then do 3 rows normal, then decrease 2 on the sole, then 3 rows normal. So I did it like that. So I decreased 8 stitches over 4 decrease rounds. So you can totally see how the patterning changed. So you had the flashing starting again here, and then as I decreased the stitches, the pulling pattern changed. So like this. So if you were to knit with this yarn on 64 stitches, this would be more like what you would get for your sock versus what I got, which is interesting, really, isn't it? That's quite a difference. So I really enjoyed these. These are by far the best fitting socks out of all the socks that I've knit so far. I mean, I love all my socks. They fit fine and I'll wear them. But in terms of fit, these so far are the best fit, but they're not quite perfect yet. So I think my next one, with every sock that I make, I'm learning something new. And I'm learning a different tweak for each one as I go forward. So I'm looking forward to a bit more sock knitting. Next up, I have another test knit that I did. This is for Ali of the Caffeinated Knitting, and this is her Flotsam hat, which she hasn't released yet, but she sent me the pattern to test it out for her. Sorry, I'm still a bit ill. I've got some tea here in my T2 tea mug, which comes out the bottom. Well, it was hilarious when she saw my mum's one. She was like, "Why is the tea coming out the bottom?" Or coming out the bum. So the tea I'm having today is 3 Ginger by Pucker. Gingery. It's nice. I just need something warm to soothe my throat at the moment, otherwise I will be coughing like crazy. So this is the hat. I finished it. I'm sure you're all not surprised at all. And it was really fun. It was really easy. It was really quick. I pretty much knit up the majority of the hat in one evening and finished it off the following morning. So yeah. Sorry, my hair is going something crazy today. But I do have, and this was knit in Malabrigo worsted. Sorry, I'm a bit all over the place this morning. In their Sapphire Magenta colourway. Just like little bits. But I do have over 40 grams left. So what I was trying to figure out was, do I want to make a pom-pom for this hat? Because you know I love my pom-poms. Or, this is really annoying. Or do I want to try and make some matching mitts? So I think I have enough when I figured out a pattern for it. So I don't know, what do you think? Pom-pom or mitts? Because I don't really want 40 grams of a worsted to sit in my stash. So I want to use it. So ideas, please. Matching mitts or pom-pom. And that's, sorry, I should have mentioned, the pattern is actually ripped for DK weight yarn, but I adapted it for worsted, and Ali said she didn't mind if I did that. So Ali, if you're watching, what I might do is I'll write up the alternative, the worsted weight, and if you want to include it with the pattern, feel free to do so. So yeah, that's that. It was quite a simple modification, so it wasn't too complicated. But yeah, I like how it turned out. I love knitting with Malibu Go West. It was the first time I was using it. It's so soft, and I just love knitting with singles. And I knit these on my higher sharps, and I had no problem whatsoever. I thought maybe because the sharp needles would end up splitting the yarn more. Not a problem at all. Perfectly fine. I'm so sorry, I realised I was terrible and didn't actually show you the patterns for any of the things that I've showed you other than the last one. So this was the pattern for the Boat Trip KAL by Christy or Stitched Together. And I realised I didn't tell you who designed the film strip and the Filtering Daylight, and both of these are designed by Suvi Samola. So that's Filtering Daylight, and that's the film strip. My printer went funny when I printed this one, so ignore that. I really like her designs. Suvi Samola, her patterns are beautiful, so beautiful. So I'm trying to organise my basket here so I keep things in the right order. And Hermione's Everyday Socks are a free pattern on Ravelry, and that's by Erica Lueder. Everyone knows the Hermione's Everyday Socks. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. Then the only other thing I have to show you in FOs, sorry, I'm just moving this basket out of the way, and it's not really a finished object, but it's more of a finished sort of sample test piece. Going back to the whole, you know, there's still so much in knitting that I don't know how to do, and I'm sure everyone's the same. No matter how long you've been knitting, there's something that you haven't tried yet. And when I was in Dubai last week, again, if you were on Instagram, you'll have seen, I actually ran out of knitting. I finished the socks, the socks I showed you. I finished those on Tuesday, and I wasn't leaving until Thursday, so I had 2 days without knitting. And by about Wednesday afternoon, I was itching to knit something. So what I decided was, rather than, and I didn't really have the right needles to do any sort of project that I had in mind with the yarns that I had left over, because I had quite a few scraps left over. I didn't really want to start another pair of socks because I didn't have quite enough yarn for another pair of socks. Then I didn't want to, I was thinking about doing matching mittens or something, or a hat for the film strip shawl that I made for my mother-in-law, but I didn't have the right needles for that. So rather than try to fudge something that I wasn't completely happy with, I decided I'd try and learn a new knitting skill. So I tried my hand at some double knitting. This is by no means perfect. This is full of mistakes. The whole charting, reading the chart and switching the colours on the wrong side and right side, that clearly got me really confused because these charts are not correct. I made up some charts as practice because I wanted to try the whole chart reading thing, and I screwed up a bunch of times, but it's fine. I mean, you can see here where I didn't carry the yarn correctly. Got a couple of blips where there shouldn't be any, and there's a blue one on this side where there shouldn't be one. And then somehow I managed to knit a blue stitch on both the front and the back. Someone's coming to say hello. There he is. It's Hugo. Say hello. Interrupting me. But I really enjoyed it. My tension needs so much work. I've got some loosey-goosey stitches. There's one here that's all a bit funny. But it was fun. It was fun to learn a new technique. I used Nathan's sock magician. I used his tutorials for casting on, the slip stitch borders and binding off. I thought they were all really good, really useful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this technique again soon and actually maybe doing a proper pattern with it. I have quite a few things that I need to knit this summer, gift knitting and stuff that I want to do and get done for birthdays in September. So I think once I get all of that out of the way, then once I've got all my gift knitting done, then I'll feel more comfortable about taking my time to do other things because, Hugo, where are you going? Tail on my face. Right, well, sorry about that. Yeah, so I do definitely want to do more double knitting. It was a lot of fun and I'm looking forward to practicing with this a bit more because, as I mentioned before, I really want to knit that Genesis shawl when he finally gets around to writing up that pattern. Sorry about the cat bum. Hugo, what are you doing? Where do you think you're going? I've got the way he's blocked with all my knitting bags and project bags and stuff, so I don't know where he thinks he's going to try and go. I may have to move him. Oh, there he goes. He's figured it out. Okay, there you go. Right, so moving on to works in progress. Yes, you guys all know what this one is. This is my Persistence is Key cardigan by Amanda Wogo. This is the one I'm knitting using the Karen Simply Soft and 1 pound yarn that I have. And it's growing, it's getting there. It's still got a way to go though. And as you can see, probably can't see all that well. Let's do it this way up and see. This is the back section, and the yellow markers show where I was last time I showed it to you a couple of weeks ago. So since getting back from Dubai, I've done 2 stripes. So that's that. That's the back, and these are the front panels with the cables coming down the sides. It's going, it's fine. This project has gotten to that stage now where I'm starting to get a little bit bored of it. Not because I don't like the pattern anymore, I do, just because it's taken so long. And this is why I never have anything on the needles that long, because I don't want to get to this stage. I don't like getting to that point where I'm bored of the pattern, or bored of knitting it, the project. Not so much that I'm bored of the pattern. So I'm afraid now this is going to be one of those long slog kind of projects. I really didn't want this to turn into that. I really didn't. I've never had a project like that, and this is really frustrating. So for me anyway, it's really frustrating. But I'm going to try and get this, my aim is to try and get the body finished by the end of the week, by next week. Aim is to get the body done on this one. I have to do 3 more stripes and then the hem and the ribbing for the hem. Sorry. So that's my goal, get that finished. Or at least the body finished, because the sleeves will be a breeze after that. The body is the difficult bit for me. Not difficult bit, but that's the bit with all the cables. The sleeves is just straight knitting. The sleeves will be fast. The body's the slow bit. And I'm fine with cables. And I've kind of got to that point now where I've pretty much memorized the charts for the back panel. It's just cables do slow you down. They're not as fast, and you can't just run through them really quickly. So those are being knit on my Knit Pro Symphony needles on 4.5mm. I'm trying to be better at remembering to tell you what I'm using for everything. Next up, I have a new project. So those of you who follow me on Instagram will have seen that I had a bit of a yarn winding party at the weekend. One of the yarns that I wound up was a lace yarn, this green sort of olive, it was called Olive when I ordered it online, and it's Drops lace, which is a mix of baby alpaca and mulberry silk. Doesn't say how much of which though, does it? Let me see. No, oh, 70% alpaca, 30% silk. So 100 grams is 800 meters. It's so soft. And I actually got this all wound up on my ball winder, which I was quite surprised about. It usually struggles towards the end of a 100-gram ball. And I am knitting the Rock Island by Jared Flood. I've had this on my mind to knit for such a long time. And this is the first time I'm knitting anything with lace weight yarn. It's my first lace weight shawl, obviously, because it's the first time I'm knitting with lace weight. Hugo, no, that's not for you. You can't eat that. He's trying to eat my acquisitions. And it's an interesting, again, it's a completely different construction than anything I've ever done before. It's bottom up, so you knit the border first, this way. So this will be the way it goes on the border. I don't know how well I can show this to you. Sort of, it's coming back to investigate now. Going, okay, yeah, he's gone. Seriously, decide what you want. Life with cats, huh? I did miss them though. Really can't stay mad at him. So yes, you knit the border first, a long strip for the border, and then you pick up, you do sort of like a yarn over at the beginning of each row, each right side row, and then you just pick up the yarn overs. And you see those loops? There you go, you see them there. You pick those up, and then you start knitting from the bottom to the top, which I think is really awesome, because the one thing that's really difficult with shawls that I struggle with as well is, I think most people struggle with this, is when you get towards the end, it's just so many stitches on your needles. I think it's quite nice every now and again to knit something where it's going the other way and your stitch count is reducing the further along you go. So yeah, I'm about 6 repeats into the border out of over 70. I've got a long way to go on this one, and it did take a bit of getting used to knitting with lace when I first started it. I just started it last night, but it did take a bit of getting used to. The first repeat or two was a bit tricky, but once I got going with it, it was alright actually, and the repeats don't take too long, thankfully. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. It's fun, but it's definitely something that requires a bit of concentration. But yeah, and next up, this is my last work in progress that is like actively on the needles, is a shawl that I'm knitting for my sister-in-law for her birthday, which is the Masco. I'm not giving it, it's a paid for pattern, but I'm not giving anything away. All of this is actually on the project page when you go to buy the pattern. And as you can see there, it's a beautiful, it's large. This shawl is going to be massive. That's the only picture on the pattern. Oh wait, no, there's another one here. Let's see if I can show you that without showing any of the pattern. You can see how big that is. It's massive. The pattern says that it's, the finished size of this will be 250 centimeters across the top edge. Yeah. It's gonna be huge, and this is how far I've gotten so far. Oh, that's the back. That's the front. The marker doesn't mark anything. It's just for me. That's where I've gotten so far. The yarn I'm using is Cascade Heritage Sock. I have all the labels. So the two main colours for the body of the shawl are colourway 5649, which is the pink colour, and 5602, which is the grey. The pink annoyed me. It's winding it, all fine. Literally, pretty much exactly halfway through the skein, about 50 grams in, the yarn broke. Like there was a break in the skein. That was annoying. So I have two 50-gram balls. fine. If I was knitting socks, I'd have loved it. And the third colour, which is the contrast, so in place of the dark blue in the picture, is number 5632, this sort of really deep plummy colour. So these two are the stripes with this purple as the contrasty bits, which would be fun. Not the colour palette I would have chosen if I was knitting this for myself. I'm not very much a pink fan. I don't think pale colours suit me. Like, I don't think these colours suit me at all, like this. But this is for my sister-in-law, and she likes pink, and pink does suit her because she's got the right sort of colouring for it. Yeah, and I like how the stripes, they are different and they do have contrast, but they're quite subtle. They're both sort of quite pale colours, which seems to be the way it's supposed to be, because you've got the two stripes here are sort of like a cream and a beige. It's like a darker beige colour. So yeah, I'm enjoying working on this. I only started this last night for taking Perry to the airport. More about that later. So yeah, and actually the pattern calls for 4.5mm needles. But after knitting the film strip and seeing how massive that thing grew, and this is superwash yarn as well as sock yarn, I was a little bit scared because this is already supposed to be 2.5 meters. I was like, geez, if this thing gets any bigger than that, how it's just going to become unwieldy. So I've gone down to 4mm needles in the hope that it will still be massive. Because it will still be massive. It's not going to dramatically change the size by, it's not going to be smaller than 2 meters. Let's just put it that way. It's never going to get that tiny. But yeah, it's just huge. So next up on the needles, moving on swiftly. Next up on the needles are a pair of socks. On my trusty 2.25s. I actually really enjoy knitting socks on these needles, these wooden Knit Pro Symphony needles. I had a few people comment and let me know, tell me that these have a tendency to break or that they're a bit too fragile, but I haven't found that so far. But I also find they're easier on my hands than metal sock knitting needles. The only other sock knitting needles I have are Addies, which are fine and they're great, but I find that they hurt my finger a lot more. I get that desensitization in my finger still, so I find I can knit longer on the wooden ones before that happens compared to the metal ones. Sticking with that for now. And the pattern I'm going to knit is called the Vanilla Sock Movement by Fiddle Knits Design. How to make your heels strong. So it's got an interesting sort of heel construction using a rib pattern, and it's cuff down. I'm planning on making these out of a crazy Zalba ball, which is the only yarn I've ever seen that actually gives you a written warning that knitting can be addictive. I don't know how well you're seeing that. You can sort of get an idea of the colourway, how it will stripe up. And these, I've already wound the ball into skeins. How well you can see that. Those colours. And these are going to be socks for my dad, I think. And so yeah. And I realised I had a look at, I did cutouts of my family's feet before we left London. And I had a little look, and my dad and my brother's foot cutouts are so close in shape and size to mine that I can pretty much knit socks for myself and try them on me, and if they fit me, I know it's going to fit them. So that's a relief. My mum's feet are a little bit smaller, but that's fine. Again, not an issue. The next project I have coming up is currently in this massive bag, and not that it's a massive project yet because I haven't cast it on, but it is a massive ball of yarn. This thing is huge. It is massive. This side's probably going to show you better. This is my Woolmize lace garn in the Grapes for Sherry colourway. It's quite tightly wound, but that was out of necessity. I started this on my ball winder. So this was actually an oversized skein. It was 325 grams rather than the regular 300 grams. And it's from their Nobody's Perfect sort of line. So basically there's something not quite right with this one. It was like maybe the color was slightly off, or in this case it might have been because it was overweight. Anyway, so I got this at I Knit Fandango. And so that's over 1,700 meters in this thing. And yeah, so I was trying to figure out what to make with this. And then I think it was Leah Unravelled on Instagram, and Ravelry, same name. She suggested that I should knit the Viajante. And I was like, ooh, I'd seen that before, but I sort of discounted it, and I can't remember why now, but I went back and had another look at it. It's a pattern by Martina Bem, and it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful shawl slash cape slash hooded cowl slash every sort of thing that you can think of to do with this. It's beautiful, and it looks like a lot of fun both to knit and to wear. So, and I kind of thought I'm going to be traveling. These are basically my favorite colors. Sort of like a nice sort of fuchsia, purple, green, and the in-betweens. Like, I really like these colors and I love them together. So, and Viajante is Portuguese for traveller, which I thought is quite fitting because I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling. Well, we in general are going to be doing a lot of traveling over the next couple of years. So, and I always get cold on planes. Always get cold. I think I mentioned this before, but so I thought this would be perfect because there's so many different ways you can wear it. And it's almost like a blanket as well. And this is the pattern. There's nothing to give away on that first page. That's kind of what it looks like. It's massive. It's huge. It's beautiful. I'm trying to find if there's another picture of it. There's another picture. I'm really looking forward to this. And I like Martina Bem's patterns because she's not a massive fan of purling. So you know when you get one of her patterns, there's not going to be much purling involved. So, and yeah, there's mostly knitting with this one. Actually, I think it's all knitting with this one. But yeah, so I'm excited to get this cast on. This will not be a quick project. I'm not expecting it to be a quick project. It will be a summer-long project, I think. Yeah. And the next project, third thing I've got coming up on my needles is, you guessed it, the raglan jumper for my dad. So this is going to be out of Drops Big Merino. It's their worsted weight yarn. It's really soft, it's really lovely. I have a bunch of it in here. I've balled up a bunch of them already. I just need to get started on it. I'm kind of waiting till I get a little bit further along in the cardigan before I start that one. Like I said, I don't want too many things on the needles. I've got 3 at the moment, which is my sweet spot. But the 2 shawls are going to take me quite a while to get through. They're not going to be quick ones. The yardage for both is just massive. So I will probably cast on something else. Either the jumper for my dad or the socks next. Just as something easy to knit as well, because although the Masco is quite easy, that's all knits anyway, the Masco shawl. But anyway, we'll see. The other thing I want to start soon, and I probably will start soon, is a sock blanket, like a sock scrap blanket. I've got a bunch of scraps now. Thank you, Katrina. And now I've been knitting more socks. I've definitely got more scraps coming along. So I want to start one of those. I think that's going to actually be a very interesting challenge for me, doing a sock scrap blanket, because like you all have probably guessed by now, I love knitting and I like finishing my knitting. I'm very much a product knitter. I enjoy the process, but I very much want the end product. I'm quite fast with my knitting, and I'm starting to learn that I shouldn't apologise for that. It is just the way I am. But a sock scrap blanket, by its very nature, is not a quick project. It is meant to be a long-term project that you just do over time to use up scraps. That's what it is. That for me is going to be a challenge because, like I've said, I've never had a long-term project. I've never done anything that's lasted more than a couple of, well, in this case my cardigan is the longest thing I've got going, and that's just over 2 months now. So yeah, I think actually doing a sock scrap blanket, other than wanting to do one and thinking knitting a blanket would be fun, I think it'd be a very interesting challenge for me because it's not something I would normally do. So yeah, wish me luck on that one. Do let me know in the comments if you are working on a sock scrap blanket and which pattern you're using, because I know there's a bunch out there that you can use. I think I'll probably use one that has a central double decrease because I do love that stitch. But I need to do a bit more research into which sort of pattern I want to go with, because I know there's so many options out there. So yeah, let me know if you have a favourite one or one that you really enjoy using for yours. And also, yeah, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say then. Right, moving on to lovely things and acquisitions. First of all, I won a prize. Actually, I won a couple of prizes this week, which was rather surprising. I won the Caffeinated Knitting girls, Ali and Danny. Sorry, Ali and Danny. They are hosting a 12 Socks in 2015 knit along this year, and Ali does a draw every month for a winner for that month. So I won the May month draw. Jeez, that's a mouthful. The May month draw, and I won a pattern. I won my choice of a pattern, and I picked the 2 Lane Highway Rage socks by Sarah Stevens. Which are these ones. I had seen Ali actually knitting them before on the podcast, on an earlier episode way back when, and I really like the look of them. And I've been wanting to knit these since, so I thought it was only fitting that since I won a sock knitting knit along, that I would get a sock pattern as the prize. So that's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to starting these soon. And I also found out that I won another sock knit along, as it were, for the Swift Knits podcast, which is hosted by Holly. And she did a month of socks knit along in May, and I entered the socks that I'd knit, and I won a prize there too, so that's really exciting. That obviously isn't here yet because it's a physical prize, but so I'll show you that when that arrives, because that'll be exciting. Yay! These are the first, I've not entered that many knit alongs actually, but so these are the first 2 prizes I've ever won in knit alongs, so that's quite fun. I also got some lovely things in the post for you guys. So Katrina, who I met in London, in Tunbridge Wells when I was in the UK, she went to Berlin Knits, and I was really jealous. I had wanted to go, but it just didn't work out, timing wise didn't work out for us on this trip. Anyway, so she went and she asked if she could send me a skein of yarn as a knit along prize. And I think what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to keep it for a future knit along, because I already have 3 prizes for the knit along I'm going to be hosting. So I think I'm going to save this one for a future one. And she sent me, I should actually get her to translate this for me because it's all in German and she's German. It's wool in the Moose Alarm. I am so sorry if I got this wrong. Anyone who speaks German wants to translate this for me, please do. So this is the yarn. It's 85%, I think it says superwash. Yeah, superwash merino, and 15% Donegal net. It's a beautiful green tweedy skein. It's so lovely, those little tweedy neps. It's a really lovely green colour, and it's smooshy, and it's really, really soft. It's 400 meters and 100 grams. These would make beautiful socks for someone. And she also sent me a lovely postcard from Kent with a lovely message on the back, which I'm not going to read. So that was one lovely package, with a prize for you guys eventually at some point. So I got another lovely package from Barbara in the US, which I totally wasn't expecting. She actually was the first person to purchase a bag from me. She commissioned me to make her that patchwork project bag, which I sent her. And she just asked me if I could send her my address. So she wanted to send me a thank you card. So I said okay. And she did. She sent me this beautiful little card. How cute is that? It says created by Barbara. She's got her stamp on the back. And she also included a cute little stitch marker. I'm not going to show you the note inside. But she makes cards. So as well as knitting, she does card making. I think card making is where she started, and then she turned to knitting afterwards. But she also sent me some Lotus Blossom green tea to try, which is Tazo tea, which I've never actually tried Tazo tea before, but I've heard good things about it. She also sent me a knitting magazine for the love of knitting rather. She said she purchased 2 copies of the magazine and thought she'd pass one along to me. There is some beautiful patterns in here. I'm not going to show you everything, but I just want to show you a couple. And I think this would be quite a nice top. Like a nice sort of cottony or bamboo even. That would be nice for the summer. But there's a shawl in here that I wanted to show you if I can find it. And it's a pie shawl. It is, just going to try and cover up the pattern. How stunning is that? And it's using like a self-striping variegated sort of yarn, but it's just so beautiful. I do love circular shawls. I do think there's something about them that's really it just looks very different. It looks fascinating. It's not the usual thing you would see. So, but yeah, lovely magazine. Lots of lovely things in there. Thank you so much. And finally, the last thing she included, which was amazing, totally unexpected, was a lovely skein of shibui. Am I pronouncing that right? Shibui staccato. It's gorgeous purple. It's 50 grams of beautiful fingering weight yarn. It's 175 meters. This would be lovely. How gorgeous is that? I haven't quite decided what I'm going to make with this, but it's a lovely mix of 70% superwash merino and 30% silk. So that's going to become something very luscious. Thank you so much, Barbara. That was so sweet of you. I really was not expecting any of that. Just the card, really. So when I opened up my PO box and saw there was 2 packages, and I checked the addresses on them, and I was just like, what has she sent me? But so sweet of you. Right, now we are on to the knit along details. So, like I mentioned earlier, my Sunrays shawl is going to be released tomorrow. So keep an eye out on Instagram and on the Ravelry group for announcements that this is released. I'm releasing it tomorrow for a number of reasons. One, it's the day after I've podcast, so I've been able to talk about it. 2, it's the 9th of June, and the 9th of June is a very special day. The 9th of June is actually the anniversary of my first date with Perry, my husband. It's, yeah, so we officially will have been together 6 years tomorrow, which is incredible. We've been married now over 3, so it's all nice and special. So I thought it was quite significant. It's a significant date for me, and we don't really do anything on. We don't celebrate it as such. We don't do anything about it. But I do always sort of when the time comes around, it kind of like, oh, That's sort of like remember it. So when the pattern comes out, you are free to cast on straight away if you would like to. The official dates for the knit along will be from the 1st of July to the 23rd of August. I'll explain why in a minute. 1st of July to the 23rd of August. And but you can cast on before that, you just can't cast off until the 1st of July. So I will be opening up the chatter thread as soon as the pattern's released. So you can write, you can post what yarn you're planning on using, post your progress, just general chitter chatter. If you want any sort of pattern support, if you need any help with anything, post it all in that thread there, and that will be the chatter thread, as I said. And then on the 1st of July, I will open up the finished objects thread, and then that will be where you post the finished picture of the shawl that you've knit. Now I'm limiting it to 1 post per finished shawl in the finished objects thread. No chatter in that thread. If there is any chatter, I will delete it or move it to the chatter thread, because that's the thread I'm going to be drawing from. So it's 1 entry per person for the shawl. So I think that's all clear. It'll all be written out in the threads anyway. What else is there? I've spoken to Mel of the Yarn Tree, and I think I already mentioned this earlier. She's still able to take orders for the yarn to be able to get to you before the 1st of July, or in time for you to be able to knit it for the knit along. So if you are interested in that, there is a link for that in the Sunrays KAL yarn pre-order thread on the group. And so the rules for the knit along are: you have to be a member of the group to be eligible for prizes, and you have to post a finished object photo in the finished objects thread before the deadline, before the thread closes. So I will be drawing prizes from the finished objects thread. If you do take part, please hashtag your pictures on Instagram with hashtag Sunrays KAL. So that's Sunrays KAL, so I can see them, and you can tag me in the pictures as well if you'd like, so I can see what you guys are up to. The knit along will end on the 23rd of August, or rather I'll actually close the thread on the morning of the 24th my time, so I don't know what that works out everywhere else in the world, but the 24th of August is a Monday, so it's a day I podcast, so I'll probably just close the thread just before I start filming, or before I start filming, so I can do the draw and then start filming. So yeah, make sure you got the finished object in there by the 23rd, which is a Sunday. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. If you have any other questions about the knit along and stuff, do let me know. The prizes, as I said, I've got 3 prizes. One is going to be a project bag made by me. The second one is going to be a skein of the Fiery Sunset colourway by the Yarn Tree UK. This is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon and 5% gold stellina. Because you can see the sparkle in that. It doesn't really show up that well on camera or in pictures, to be honest, but it is super sparkly in real life. Really bright, lovely colours. And the third prize is this beautiful skein of the Natural Dye Studio, the Chi Merino Bamboo 4-ply sock yarn in the Peacock 3 colourway. Now this company is actually no longer in business, so you can't actually get this yarn anymore. So it's a very special skein donated by Katrina. Thank you so much. So those are going to be the 3 prizes. And so the project bag, I haven't decided on a specific one yet for the prize, but we will figure that out near the time. What I might do is just once I've drawn the prize, the winner of the project bag can just pick from one of the project bags that I have. So yeah, so that covers the knit along stuff, information. So please do come along and join in on that. It'll be lots of fun to have you all involved. And if we do have a lot of people, I might throw in another prize. We'll see. Right, so moving on to a week in review. So for those of you who are only here for the knitting, that is it. That's all the knitting related stuff. There's no more knitting. So if you're not interested in hearing about my life, then then thank you for joining, and I will speak to you next week. But if you are interested, then please stick around. First of all, what I wanted to say was I read something on the Ravelry group this last week that really, really cheered me up, and it made me feel so happy, because I was like, you know what, this is why I'm doing this. This is amazing, and I can't believe that I helped someone like this. Nancy, I hope you don't mind me mentioning you. Nancy from the US on the Ravelry group had commented, I think it was in the introductions thread where she introduced herself. And she talked about knitting and stuff, and I had made a comment about and I've made this comment several times, both in the podcast and on the group, that I don't let small mistakes stop me in my knitting. I don't let it slow me down. I don't rip back for silly mistakes or little things that aren't that obvious, and I won't frog a project and start again just because of a small error. Because I kind of find those little mistakes endearing. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, so she left me a message saying that she was, because of what I'd said about not letting mistakes get in my way, she finished a shawl that she had originally planned on frogging because she'd made a small mistake somewhere. But because of what I'd said, she actually went ahead, finished the shawl, fixed the I think it was a drop stitch. She fixed it, sort of just like sewed it in on the back, so it wasn't obvious. And now she's got a beautifully finished shawl. No one would know better that it's got a small mistake on it. And she's got a lovely project out of it and didn't frog the project. And that makes me so happy that someone has actually gotten something out of something I've said, if that makes sense. Someone's actually benefited out of some advice that I've given them, and I think that's amazing, and I feel truly honoured by that. I just kind of wanted to start by saying that was really special to see that. Right, okay, it's back to my week in review. I was away in Dubai last week, and I really missed Perry while I was away this time. Honestly, I don't think I've ever missed him as much as I had this time. It's also the longest we've ever been apart. 12 days I wasn't here. So that's the longest we haven't seen each other. So that was quite tough. I think it was also tough for a number of other reasons, not just the time and being away from each other, but also it sort of came at a time when we'd already spent quite a bit of time apart, and we hadn't really had much time together in between these trips. Then on top of that, I was back in Dubai, which was a place where we both lived and where we lived together. It wasn't a particularly enjoyable trip in that it was very stressful. The first week was incredibly stressful with the visa stuff. I mean, I had a lot of fun getting to catch up with friends and hanging out with at my friend's house with her and her kids, and that was all incredibly enjoyable. But the overall sort of underlying feeling that I got from the trip was that it was very stressful that first week, and the second week I was getting ill, so I was progressively feeling worse as the week went on. And so all of that combined kind of just, I really missed Perry that week, and I really missed being with him and seeing him, and I actually felt really homesick for the first time in a very, very long time. I don't get homesick usually. I enjoy traveling and I enjoy coming home, but I don't usually get homesick, not in the way that I did while I was away. Oh my god, it was so hot though. It was so incredibly hot in Dubai. Even the papers and the news there were reporting it as a heat wave because it was insane. I think one day they clocked the temperatures at over 50 degrees centigrade in another city in the country. It was just insane. It was around mid-40s centigrade most days, which is I think around 110 odd-ish Fahrenheit. Oh, it was nuts. You stood outside, and if it was windy, the wind, honestly, the closest thing I could describe to how hot it was in Dubai is if you go take a hairdryer, turn it on and point it at your face. stand in front of a hairdryer. That's what it felt like when the wind blew in Dubai. That's like literally the best way I can describe it. It was just so hot. And whilst Bahrain is definitely cooler, not by much to be honest, but it's definitely cooler, it is so much more humid here at the moment. Humidity has not quite hit in Dubai yet. But over the weekend, humidity here was 85 to 90%. It was horrible and sticky. Like, you step outside and you feel wet. Like, you feel the wetness on your skin. It's not nice at all. It was quite gross. Anyway, I was really bad. I was really ill on Thursday. I kind of, as I said, I was getting progressively worse during the week, and it culminated, I think, Friday and Saturday. I was at my worst. It was just horrendously ill, coughing, spluttering. All that. I actually got to a point the weekend where I thought I wasn't going to be able to podcast today because I was like, oh, I'm going to be too sick. But thankfully, yesterday I started to get better. But it was a bit annoying, really, because it meant I wasn't. I had so many plans for the weekend. I didn't get to do any of them. I got to do only a couple of the things I'd wanted to get done, and I had to keep my distance from Perry as well. So even though we were hanging out, I couldn't really like sort of cuddle up with him or anything because I didn't want to get him sick. He's in New York this week. I had to take him to the airport last night, and he's off in New York this week for the next set of classes for his MBA that he's doing. So I really didn't want to get him ill before he left because he's going to be really busy and really doing a lot of studies and stuff and work. So I didn't want to make him ill, and he didn't want to get ill. So I had to keep my distance over the weekend anyway. So that was kind of sucked, really. But yeah, anyway, so I'm glad I'm feeling better now. Tea's definitely helping. Yeah, and this is the tea brewer that we use. It's by a company called T2, which is in the UK. My mum got this for me. It's meant for loose leaf tea. It's got like a nice little sort of like sieve at the bottom, and it makes cleaning out really easy. But I've just been using it with tea bags at the moment. Oh, little gecko sort of popped up again this weekend. I sort of posted a picture of that on Instagram, and I asked you guys. I was like, well, since this little guy's planning on hanging around, what should we name him? And it seemed that the predominant winner, the name that won, or that was the most popular, was Stash. So I think it's going to be Stash. It's going to be his little name. I'm assuming it's a he. Don't actually know. So yes, my little Stash buddy. Okay, so the next segment, I just wanted to talk really quickly about doing a little giveaway. So just as I mentioned, I got over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube this last week, and I am so blown away by that. It's just incredible, you guys. I cannot believe it. You guys have all been so supportive and so lovely throughout this whole process so far. And I just wanted to do a little something to say thank you. So I wanted to do a little pattern giveaway. So I'll be giving away 3 copies of my Sunrays shawl pattern, which is released tomorrow, and to 3 winners. They're going to be drawn using random number generator. So in order to do this, I would need you guys to be a member of the Ravelry group and to post in the giveaway thread. I'll post a giveaway thread after the show notes go up, or after the podcast goes up. And I want you to answer a very simple question, which is, how did you get started in knitting? How did you learn? Who did you learn from? You know, just about how you got started with it, really, because I find that really fascinating. I love hearing about how people started with knitting. I love hearing the different stories, the different yeah, it's because everyone's story is slightly different, and I find that fascinating. So 1 post per person in the giveaway thread. I will use random number generator to draw 3 winners next week before I podcast, and I'll announce the winners in the next podcast episode. The reason why it has to be done on Ravelry is whilst YouTube will tell me how many subscribers I have, unless the people decide to be sort of like public or have their there seems to be a setting that if you decide not to show it, I can't actually see everyone who is a subscriber. So doing the draw on YouTube wouldn't necessarily be fair. So, and also it's hard to figure it out from that, to be honest. So please join the Ravelry group, comment with your answer to the question in the relevant giveaway thread, and I will draw from that thread next week for 3 pattern prizes. And if you've already purchased the pattern, by the time if I've drawn your name and you already have the pattern for my shawl, let me know and I'll send you a different pattern. I'll gift you a different pattern of your choosing. Right. The only other things I have to mention in sort of like week in review is that my planned trip to Turkey is now not happening anymore, which in some respects I'm kind of relieved about. Obviously I would have loved to have gone to meet up with family and stuff, but my cousin's now decided that he's not going to do his wedding there. He's going to postpone it and do it in Iran later this year. So it suits me fine, frankly, because I was getting quite stressed out by it because it was taking so long to sort out and it was getting so close to the actual time we were supposed to go. But also because I've been away so much recently and Perry's been away so much. We've both been away intermittently. By the time he gets back, it will be 7 weeks from when I first left to go to London. And in those 7 weeks, we'll have literally spent about 7 days together out of 7 weeks. So I'm looking forward to just not going anywhere for a while. So, like I said, a bit of a relief that I'm not going now, but also I kind of did want to go. I just think timing wise wasn't too great for me. And also I found out I don't actually have to get a US visa. I can just get a regular tourist visa and that is all fine. And thankfully there was just a little bit of confusion. I think the embassy gave Perry some information and then the university gave him different information and we figured it out. Thankfully I don't have to go for that visa. So that's one less thing to worry about. So yeah, things are a bit easing up a little bit. Right, now onto the Q&A section. I am only going to answer a couple of things, well, one question really in this one. And I get asked a lot about what life is like in the Middle East and our experiences here, and people are interested in hearing about that sort of stuff. So I thought I'd mention something about life in the Middle East that you might not necessarily know about, is that the weekends are different. We don't have the same weekends as most people in the rest of the Western world. So in America and Europe and majority of the world, the weekend is Saturday and Sunday. In the Middle East, the weekend is Friday, Saturday. So when we first moved here, something that was really interesting and difficult to get used to initially was that Sunday is a work day. Sorry, there's a cat on the daybed behind me. Sorry. That Sunday's a work day and Friday's a day off. So it was very, very strange and very surreal, and we kept getting the days muddled up. But it took a while, but after about a year we finally got used to it. And now when I go back to the UK, I get really confused that people go to work on Friday and they don't work on Sunday. So it's quite funny. I thought that was quite funny. What sort of things you get used to. Another question I got a lot at the time when we were first moving and telling people that we were coming to Dubai was, aren't you scared about moving to the Middle East? I was just like, why would I be scared? I don't really understand the idea of why would I be scared of moving to Dubai? Out of all the places I could have gone to in the Middle East, Dubai is possibly the least scary place I could go to. They're like, oh, well, aren't you worried? Like, it's so strict over there. I'm like, well, not really. If you think about it logically, you can see Hugo there. You little sneaker. What are you doing? It's like, if you think about it logically, the laws aren't really all that different. You still have the same basic laws, no stealing, no theft, and blah blah blah. you know, being appropriate in public and stuff like that. All that happens is Hugo. Sorry, we see him there. He's just investigating. Oh, okay. He's just made himself comfortable on my fabric. Lovely. Right. Yes. So as I was saying, it's not that. What was this? So, like I was saying, it's not that the laws are more restrictive. I really don't think they are. They are pretty much exactly the same sort of general laws and regulations in terms of the sort of things that would apply to me or that would affect me on a day-to-day basis. Things like theft and things like that. The only real difference is the punishment's harsher. So rather than, for example, you just getting where you might get a fine or a warning, in the UK you might get a heavier fine or even potentially prison time or deportation in Dubai. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Crime in Dubai is really low, really low crime rate, really safe place to be, because I think that their punishments are generally just a little bit harsher. But when people ask me, am I scared of the laws there, is that I'm not, because honestly they're the same laws as I have to live by in the UK. I don't break any laws anyway. Why would I start doing it when I move to the Middle East? You know, it'd be just like saying, oh, aren't you scared of the police in the UK? Well, no, why would I be? I'm not doing anything wrong. So that was, I'm hoping that some of that made some sense, so I'm really sorry if it doesn't. I had some questions from people about wanting to know a bit more about about my traveling, because I mentioned that we travel a lot and that we really enjoy traveling, and I will. But this podcast has already gone on long enough, and I was hoping this was going to be a shorter one, but I guess not. So I will talk a bit more about that another time. So yes. Oh, and if you do have any questions, and I do have a thread in the Ravelry group for questions and suggestions for the podcast. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything in particular you'd like to know about me, about our life, about knitting, anything really, let me know. Leave a comment in the thread and I will endeavour to answer you on the next podcast. So thank you very much again for taking the time to spend with me today and watch the podcast. Thank you so much. Please do come and join the group, take part in the many different threads that are active at the moment, and giveaways and the knit along and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, thank you so much, and have a happy week knitting. Bye.